Hello, English learners. Welcome back to another great podcast here at English Pod. My name is Marco.
And I'm Erica.
And today we're going to be talking about one of our favorite topics, as always.
Food.
Food. We're going to be at a restaurant.
And, one of the most difficult or embarrassing things to deal with at a restaurant is what to say when you don't like the food or when it's bad quality food.
Right. So maybe we have to complain about the food or maybe even the service, right?
That's right. And in this lesson, we're going to be learning some really wonderful words and phrases that you can use when you need to complain about the food or the service in a restaurant.
Okay, so before we listen to what happens in this restaurant with this food, let's take a look very quickly at vocabulary preview.
Vocabulary preview.
Okay, we're only going to do one word today, and this you'll hear in the dialogue. An establishment.
Establishment.
This kind of establishment.
Okay, so when I say an establishment, that's a noun. What is an establishment?
It's basically a fancy word for a business or a restaurant in this case.
In this case, it's a restaurant.
Yep.
But in general, you can say it's a business. So you have a very fine establishment.
That's right. So an establishment, a type of business, a place of business, really.
Very good. All right, so now it's time for us to listen to our dialogue. We're going to find out what's going on here. Apparently, there is a very angry customer, and we're going to find out why.
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. In this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway.
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
Honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
Well, I guess that's one lesson, hey? If you're in a restaurant, don't be too rude to the waiter. You never know what's going to happen.
The waiter and the cook, right?
Yeah, you don't want to offend that kitchen staff.
All right, so we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but now I think we had some really interesting vocabulary of how to describe food that is not well prepared, and we can take a look at that now in Language Takeaway.
Language takeaway.
All right, so the guy in this dialogue, he ordered a mushroom soup, and he complained that the mushroom soup was too runny.
Okay, the soup is too runny.
Runny.
So he wanted a cream of mushrooms, so it should be a little bit thicker.
Yep.
But in this case, it was runny.
So when something is runny, it's too liquid.
Too liquid. And I think we can relate it to a runny nose, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when liquid is coming out of your nose, a runny nose, in this case, the soup is runny.
All right. And another thing that he was complaining about, the food was over-seasoned.
Over-seasoned.
The food is over-seasoned.
Okay, so if the food is over-seasoned,
it's too salty.
So it's another way of saying it's too salty.
Yeah, it's kind of a fancy a cooking term.
Now, can I say if there's too much pepper in the food, can I say it's over-seasoned?
Well, technically, no. When a cook says something is over-seasoned, he's talking salt only.
Only salt, okay. So the cream of mushroom is very runny, it's over-seasoned, and he said it's completely inedible.
Inedible.
It's inedible.
Inedible.
Now, this word edible,
You can eat it.
You can eat it. So we add this prefix inedible.
You cannot eat it.
This is not possible.
Yeah. And it doesn't mean that physically you can't eat it. It just means it's pretty disgusting.
Okay. This food is inedible. And then he started to complain about the other dish. And he said that it's rubbery.
Rubbery.
The foie gras was rubbery.
All right. So I think we noticed the word rubber. So obviously, if a food is rubbery, it tastes, or it's too chewy. It's like chewing on the bottom of your shoe, right?
Okay, so it's too hard to chew or to swallow.
Exactly.
All right. Apparently, the food was rubbery because it's completely overcooked.
Overcooked.
All right, we have overcooked.
So when something is overcooked, I mean, it's easy to understand that it's cooked too much.
But it doesn't mean that it's burnt, right?
No, so maybe you've ordered your steak to be rare, but it comes to you well done. So it's not burnt, but it's cooked too much.
So also, I guess we can say like chicken. Sometimes if you overcook chicken, it comes out too dry.
Yep.
All right, so to overcook something.
And finally, he was complaining about the size of the dish, and he said, this is a sliver of duck liver.
Okay, a sliver.
A sliver.
All right. Now, this word sliver is like a slice, right?
A very small, tiny little slice.
Okay, so we can say, okay, I just want a sliver of bacon for breakfast.
All right, why don't we hear a few more examples of how we can use sliver?
Example 1.
No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream.
Example 2.
I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver?
Example 3.
You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here.
And those are all the words we had for language takeaway. Now you have... So we've given you different adjectives of describing food that is not well prepared. So now let's move on to some other phrases that the customer used to complain in Fluency Builder.
Fluency Builder.
Okay, so before we get to the customer complaining language, I want to look at a phrase that the waiter used to apologize. He said, I do apologize.
I do apologize.
I do apologize.
Now, why is this phrase so interesting?
Well, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand the meaning, but I want to look at why he added this verb do. Well, he added the verb do to this phrase to make it seem a little bit stronger, to give a little more power to his apology.
Right, so if you have an affirmative phrase like, I apologize.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
But if you want to give it a little bit more emphasis, you can say, I do apologize.
Why don't we give an example? So I might say this. Marco, I didn't know we had a party tonight.
And I might say, what? I did tell you about it last week.
Right, so you're just giving a little bit more power to the statement that you told me.
So this do, did, does becomes an auxiliary to make it more powerful, to give it more emphasis.
Yeah, exactly. So a neat little phrase, something you can use if you want to make your apologies sound maybe a little bit stronger.
All right. Now moving on to the next phrase. He was complaining about the food and it was terrible, and he said, I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks.
Okay, let's break this one down into two sections. We'll start with shelling out.
All right, so to shell out.
So when you shell out, you pay for something.
All right, but this gives you the sensation that you don't really want to pay.
You're a bit unhappy about it.
Right, so you want to shell out your money.
Why don't we listen to some examples to show us how we can use this phrase to shell out?
Example 1.
Great. It's my girlfriend's birthday this month, so I'm gonna have to shell out for a present.
Example 2.
I really want those shoes, but I can't really afford to shell out $400.
Example 3.
I can't believe it. Ella shelled out the $800 for the tickets. I thought I would have to pay.
All right, so now that we understand shell out, let's move on to the second part of that sentence. My hard-earned bucks.
hard-earned bucks.
My hard-earned bucks.
Okay, so bucks are dollars, right?
Dollars. Only dollars, right?
Yeah, not pounds, not euros. But his hard-earned bucks is money he had to work really hard for.
So I can also say my hard-earned money, right? Or my hard-earned cash.
Exactly.
Very good. So you worked hard to get it.
All right, so three great phrases that can be used when you're complaining in a restaurant. And why don't we hear them one last time in context by listening to the dialogue?
Excuse me, waiter.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
I've been sitting here for the past 20 minutes and no one has offered me a glass of water, brought any bread to the table, and our appetizers haven't been served yet. You know, in this kind of establishment, I'd expect much better service.
I'm sorry, sir. I'll check on your order right away.
Relax, honey. The place is busy tonight, and I've heard the food is amazing. Anyway,
Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and a mushroom soup for you.
Waiter! I ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. The soup is obviously too runny and it's over-seasoned. It's completely inedible.
Okay, I do apologize for that. Can I bring you another soup, or would you like to order something else?
Take this foie gras back as well. It's rubbery and completely overcooked. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?
Right away, sir.
honey, come on. The foie gras was fine. Why are you making such a big deal? Are you trying to get our meal comped again?
What do you mean? We are paying for this, and I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks. I expect value for money.
Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you.
Yes, fine.
Honey, are you all right?
So complaining at a restaurant and actually sending food back is not uncommon in the US.
Yeah, of course. If the food's bad, of course you're going to send it back.
But maybe in other cultures, I think people would be a little bit more reluctant to do something like this.
Yeah. But hey, you know what's an interesting thing about the way Americans eat in restaurants is sometimes at the end of the meal, if they haven't finished everything, they might ask for a doggy bag.
A doggy bag, yeah.
Yeah. So what is that, a doggy bag?
Well, usually if you order a big meal or, half your steak is left over on your plate, you would ask for a doggy bag and they would bring you a little box or a bag and you would take it to supposedly give it to your dog.
Right. So it's sort of like you tell the waiter, the steak was so good, I couldn't finish it. Can I take some home to my dog?
Right. So you would just ask, waiter, can I have a doggy bag?
Right. But it's sort of like code for, I'm going to eat this tomorrow for lunch.
Exactly. Because people wouldn't really give it to their dogs.
Yeah.
I mean,
that steak wrapped up in a fancy sort of foil swan is going to be pretty delicious the next day.
right. Yeah, it's actually very common in the US, but in other countries, people will leave entire plates of food on the
it'd
table.
be totally impolite to ask the waiter to pack up the food for you.
Exactly.
Yep.
So a little bit of cultural differences, but we want to know what you think and how things are done maybe in your country with complaining or sending food back or even this whole doggy bag situation.
Hi, welcome. Are you ready to listen to our story? I still remember that night like it happened just yesterday. We had planned a special evening, something elegant, something classy. My partner and I had worked hard all week, and we wanted to reward ourselves. So we decided to try this upscale French restaurant downtown. The kind of place where the waiters wear bodies and the lighting makes everything look golden. We walked in, smiled at the host, and got seated at a cozy corner table near the window. Now, here's the thing. Dining out, especially at a fine establishment, is not just about eating food, it's about the whole experience. The ambience, the service, the presentation. Even the little things, like a glass of water or warm bread at the beginning, matter a lot. But as we sat down and glanced over the menu, something felt off. No water, no bread, no welcome from a waiter, just silence. 15 minutes passed. Then 20. Still nothing. I looked around. Waiters buzzed past our table, serving others, laughing, pouring wine, but we were invisible. My stomach growled, and so did my frustration. I cleared my throat, sat up straighter, and finally caught the eye of a waiter walking by. "Excuse me," I said calmly but firmly. "We've been sitting here for 20 minutes. No water, no bread, not even a hello. We haven't received our appetizers yet. Honestly, in this kind of establishment, I expected a lot more. Now, let's pause here and learn something useful." That phrase in this kind of establishment is a polite but powerful way to say, this is supposed to be a high-quality place, so why is the service so poor? It's a gentle way of expressing disappointment without being aggressive. Good English doesn't always shout, it often whispers with meaning. The waiter looked flustered. "I'm terribly sorry, sir." "I'll check on your order right away." That was the right thing to say. In fact, saying "I'll check on your order right away" is a great phrase. It shows urgency, responsibility, and care. If you work in hospitality or customer service, use it. It can calm even the most frustrated guests. But at that moment, I wasn't calmed. My partner, ever the peacemaker, whispered, "Relax, love. It's busy tonight. I've heard the food is amazing." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But something in my gut told me this meal was about to become a masterclass in disappointment. And not just because of the late service, but because we were about to face some serious food failures too. You see, it's one thing to wait a bit, but when you finally get served and the food itself becomes a problem, that's when it really tests your patience and your vocabulary. Especially if you're an English learner, knowing how to complain politely yet effectively can make or break situations like this. And that, my friend, is exactly what happened next. Just as I was beginning to doubt the entire evening, the waiter returned with 2 plates balanced on his hands like a magician, graceful, but nervous. He placed them down with a practiced smile. "Here you are, sir. The foie gras for the lady and the mushroom soup for you." Now, I had ordered a cream of mushroom soup with asparagus. That's what I was craving, a smooth, rich, velvety soup with a touch of green elegance. What I got was, well, something completely different. The soup looked thin, almost watery. I gave it a gentle stir with my spoon. It moved around the bowl like broth. No cream, no asparagus, just disappointment in liquid form. I lifted the spoon, took one cautious sip, and that was all I needed. The taste was harsh, overwhelming. There was too much salt and no balance. It didn't even taste like mushrooms anymore. I could barely swallow it. "This is clearly not what I ordered," I said aloud. "This soup is too runny, and it's completely overseasoned." Let's break that down for anyone learning English. When you say a dish is too runny, you're saying it's not thick enough, it's too much like water. Great for juice, bad for soup, and overseasoned means there's too much salt or spice. In this case, the chef had been a bit too generous with the salt shaker. But it wasn't just the soup. I turned to the foie gras in front of my partner. She gave it one bite, then quietly shook her head. I picked up her fork, tried a piece myself, and immediately understood. It was rubber like chewing on a sponge. Foie gras should melt in your mouth like butter. This one fought back. I looked up and called the waiter again. "I'm sorry," I said, trying to stay composed. "But this foie gras is overcooked and rubbery. And look at the portion size. How can you charge $25 for a sliver of duck liver?" Now here's a great word for your vocabulary: sliver. A sliver is a very small, thin slice of something. You can say, "I just want a sliver of cake" if you're on a diet. But when you're paying full price, a sliver feels like an insult. The waiter, clearly embarrassed, nodded. "Right away, sir. I'll return these to the kitchen." My partner leaned in, half whispering, "Are you really sending both dishes back?" The foie gras was fine, but it wasn't fine not for the price, not for the place. And that brings us to another important point for language learners: how to stand up for your value politely. I replied with a phrase you should memorize. I'm shelling out my hard-earned bucks for this. I expect value for money. Let's talk about that. To shell out means to pay often unwillingly. And hard-earned bucks means money you worked hard for. When you say this phrase, it tells others, I'm not trying to be rude, I just want fairness. The waiter left quickly, carrying our plates back to the kitchen, and we were left sitting in silence once again. Was I being too harsh? Maybe, but when you've worked long hours, saved your earnings, and look forward to a rare night out, every bite matters, every word matters too. And knowing the right words in English makes a world of difference when you're in a situation like this: calm, but firm, polite, but clear. And so, we waited again, only this time, I hoped the next round would be worth every dollar, every second, and every word I'd used. 10 minutes later, the waiter returned, his posture straighter now, a flicker of pride in his eyes. He placed the new dishes gently on the table. Here you are, sir. I hope it is all right now. The chef has prepared it especially for you. I looked down at the plate. The soup actually looked right this time, thicker, creamy, with delicate green pieces of asparagus peeking through the surface. The smell was inviting, the presentation neat. I gave it a taste, smooth, balanced, warm. Finally, it felt like what I had originally ordered. But here's the funny thing about experiences like this. Even when the food is corrected, the mood doesn't always recover right away. That first impression sticks. My partner was watching me, curious but quiet. She raised her glass and gave me a look, half amused, half annoyed. You okay now? She asked. I gave a small nod. Better. But I'm still surprised by how bad it was earlier. I mean, how do you mess up mushroom soup? She sighed and leaned in. Maybe next time we pick a place where you don't have to fight for every bite. That made me smile, and suddenly I realized something important, something I want to share with every English learner listening. When we talk about food in English, it's more than just describing taste. Food connects deeply to emotion, expectation, and sometimes even pride. And being able to explain what's wrong with a dish or express your disappointment clearly without raising your voice is a very powerful skill. Let me give you some phrases that are both useful and polite. This isn't what I ordered. Direct, honest, and respectful. I'm not satisfied with the quality of this dish. A more formal and professional tone. The texture seems off, it's too rubbery. Use texture words like rubbery, dry, watery, or soggy. The seasoning is too strong. This is a nice way to say there's too much salt or spice. When you use these kinds of expressions, you avoid sounding rude or aggressive and instead come across as thoughtful and respectful, something every restaurant staff appreciates. Now back to our dinner. The foie gras came back too, this time served gently with a golden crust and a softer center. I cut through it with my fork, and it didn't bounce back like before. Much better. My partner took a bite and raised her eyebrows. Okay, she said, now this is foie gras. We laughed. For a moment, it felt like the evening had been rescued. But just then, I glanced over and saw the chef peeking from behind the kitchen door, watching us carefully. It was subtle but very real. His face was unreadable. Maybe he was curious. Maybe annoyed. Maybe both. And that's something else I realized when you send food back. You're not just asking for better service. You're challenging someone's work, so you have to do it with the right tone and the right words. Learning English isn't just about vocabulary. It's about reading a room, reading a situation, and in a restaurant. That matters a lot. Because once the mood turns sour, it takes real effort both in food and language to turn it sweet again. I finished the last spoonful of soup and pushed the bowl aside. This time, it was edible, not just edible enjoyable. Still, there was one more important part of the evening left, the bill. And in places like this, the bill always has its own story to tell. The waiter returned once more, holding a sleek black folder with a subtle smile. He placed it gently on the edge of the table. "Take your time," he said, before disappearing into the soft lighting of the dining room. I slid the bill toward me and opened it slowly. My eyes scanned the page. The soup, $12. The foie gras, $25. Drinks, service charge. It was all there, no adjustments, no discounts, no notes from the manager. I took a breath. So we sent food back, waited nearly 40 minutes, and they still charged full price. It felt like a slap in the face. Now, here's something important to understand. Especially if you're learning English and you're in a Western country like the US, complaining about a bill is not rude if you do it the right way. You just need the right language. It's not about anger, it's about fairness. I raised my hand politely, and when the waiter returned, I pointed at the charges. "Excuse me," I said in a calm voice, but I noticed we were charged full price for the original dishes even though we sent them back untouched. He leaned in to look at the bill. "Yes, sir." The kitchen prepared them again, so the replacements were provided. "That's fine," I said, but we waited a long time, and the original dishes were inedible. I think a gesture of goodwill would be appropriate. There it is, a gesture of goodwill. That's a powerful phrase. It means, I'm not demanding something. I'm giving you a chance to do the right thing. He hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Let me speak with the manager." Now, while we waited again, let me teach you a few more phrases that can help in these situations. I'd like to speak with the manager, polite but firm. Use it when things are not being handled well. Is there anything you can do about this? This invites a solution without creating pressure. I understand mistakes happen, but I hope we can find a fair resolution, a perfect phrase when you want to show understanding, but also stand your ground. A few minutes later, the waiter came back with the bill revised. The price of the foie gras had been removed, and there was a note at the bottom. "Apologies for the inconvenience. Thank you for your understanding." Now that's how a restaurant should handle it. Respect and professionalism. They didn't argue. They didn't defend bad food. They took responsibility. I looked at my partner. She gave a small smile. "That was fair," she said. "And you handled it well?" I shrugged. It's not about being picky. It's about knowing what you're paying for. And again, here's something English learners should take away from this. Expressing dissatisfaction isn't always about complaining. It's about communication. Being honest, respectful, and specific can help you solve problems without creating conflict. We paid the new bill, added a tip for the waiter because, let's face it, he was doing his best and got up to leave. The room still buzzed with quiet conversation, clinking glasses, and the soft notes of jazz. As we walked out into the night air, I felt both lighter and wiser. Not just because the food had improved or the bill had been adjusted, but because I had learned how to speak up the right way. And that, in any language, is a skill worth mastering. The city lights shimmered on the sidewalk as we stepped outside, the cool night air brushing away the last bits of tension from the evening. We didn't say much at first, just walked side by side, the soft click of my partner's heels echoing along the pavement. But inside, I was replaying every detail, not just of the food or the service, but of how I had handled it all. And you know what? I felt proud. A few years ago, I wouldn't have had the words. I might have just stayed quiet, paid the bill, and gone home angry. Or maybe I would have exploded and made a scene, ruining the evening for everyone around me. But now, with more confidence in my English, I had something better: control. That's a powerful thing to know what to say, when to say it, and how to say it well. We stopped at a corner, waiting for the light to change, and my partner turned to me. "You know," she said, "you were really calm in there, assertive, but respectful." Not easy to do when you're upset. I smiled. I just tried to use clear language, be direct, but not rude. That's one of the golden rules of English communication, clarity over conflict. If you want something to change, whether it's your dinner, your hotel room, or a product you bought, complaining won't help unless you communicate clearly. And clearly doesn't mean loudly. It means knowing the words that move things forward. For example, instead of saying, "This is terrible," say, "This isn't what I expected." Can we talk about it instead of shouting? "I want a refund," say, "Is it possible to get a refund or an exchange?" Using softeners words like perhaps, I think, or would it be possible can make a huge difference. They reduce the pressure and increase the chance of getting what you want. I remembered a phrase the waiter used earlier too. "I do apologize." That little word "do" added emphasis. It made his apology sound more sincere. Native speakers use that trick often. "I do appreciate it. I did try to reach you." We do value your feedback. If you're learning English, these little boosters give your speech both power and politeness. We turn the corner, passing a small cafe still buzzing with late-night energy. I could smell fresh espresso and hear quiet laughter from inside. It reminded me that not all restaurant experiences are frustrating. Many are warm, welcoming, and memorable for all the right reasons. But here's what matters: even when things go wrong, your words can make them right. And honestly, tonight wasn't a disaster, it was a lesson. A real-life classroom where language met reality. I didn't just use English to talk. I used it to stand up, to stay calm, to create change and still walk out with my dignity intact. So many people think learning English is about memorizing words or grammar rules. But tonight proved it's more than that. It's about using the language to protect your experience, express your values, and understand others even when emotions are high. As we reached our apartment, my partner smiled and said, "Next time, I'm picking the place." I laughed, "Deal, but I'll still bring the words just in case." The next morning, I woke up with sunlight spilling through the window and the faint smell of coffee drifting from the kitchen. My partner was already up, flipping through a magazine, sipping from a mug. As I joined her at the table, she looked at me over the rim of her cup and said, "You know, last night was kind of inspiring." I raised an eyebrow. She nodded, "Yeah. Watching you handle that situation, the food, the waiter, the billet reminded me how powerful language can be. You didn't yell, you didn't back down. You just communicated." That word stuck with me, communicated. Because that's what it really comes down to, not just knowing English, but using it to express yourself clearly, calmly, and with purpose, especially when the situation gets tough. You see, life will always bring unexpected moments. Maybe it's bad food at a restaurant, or a hotel room that doesn't match the photos, or a delayed flight. And in those moments, frustration builds fast. But if you have the words, if you know how to describe, request, question, and respond, you stay in control. Think about it. Instead of feeling powerless, you become persuasive. Instead of being passive, you become proactive. Instead of walking away angry, you walk away understood. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned back in my chair, thinking about how far I'd come, not just in fluency, but in confidence. Years ago, I used to avoid situations where I had to speak up in English. I'd accept bad service because I didn't know how to push back politely. I'd stay silent, then regret it later. But not anymore. Last night showed me that knowing the right expressions isn't just useful, it's empowering. Phrases like, "This isn't quite what I ordered." "Would you mind checking with the kitchen? I'm hoping we can find a solution." They're not just polite, they're tools to fix problems, to protect your money, and most importantly, to express yourself. Even that phrase I used, a gesture of goodwill, made a difference. It turned a complaint into a conversation. That's real communication. That's what learning English is all about. I looked at my partner and smiled. You know, I think last night should be a podcast episode. She grinned. You mean like how to survive a fancy restaurant with dignity and good English? Exactly. And to you, dear listener, if there's one thing I hope you take from this story, it's this. Everyday situations like ordering dinner can become powerful lessons when you pay attention to the language. Don't just learn English to pass a test. Learn it to protect yourself, to connect with others, and to live with confidence. Because fluency isn't just speaking fast or using big words, it's saying the right thing at the right time and doing it in a way that makes people listen. So thank you for being a part of the best English podcast zone. Keep learning. Keep speaking and never be afraid to use your voice.
The English Pod Audio Review. Listen to the meaning, then say the vocabulary word. A bad second taste.
A bad aftertaste.
A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet.
Bitter.
A strong, unpleasant smell.
Rank.
A rotten taste or smell.
Rancid.
Not appealing, not attractive or tasty.
Unappealing.
Little dish people have before meal.
Appetizer.
Place of business like a restaurant or hotel.
Establishment.
Work done by someone to serve customers.
Service.
The list containing your choices of dishes.
Order.
A food made from the livers of geese.
Foie gras.
More liquid than expected.
Runny.
Too salty.
Overseasoned.
Cannot be eaten.
Inedible.
Difficult to chew.
Rubbery.
Be cooked over time.
Overcooked.
The amount of food that is served to a person.
Portion size.
A small, thin piece.
Sliver.
Get very upset about something small.
Make a big deal.
Be given to customers for free.
Comp.
To spend money.
Shell out.
Money you work hard for.
Hard earned.
Let's try that faster. Work done by someone to serve customers.
Service.
Place of business like a restaurant or hotel.
Establishment.
More liquid than expected.
Runny.
The amount of food that is served to a person.
Portion size.
A strong, unpleasant smell.
Rank.
Difficult to chew.
Rubbery.
Too salty.
Overseasoned.
Not appealing, not attractive or tasty.
Unappealing.
Be given to customers for free.
Comp.
Get very upset about something small.
Make a big deal.
A strong, unpleasant taste that is opposite of sweet.
Bitter.
A bad second taste.
A bad aftertaste.
A food made from the livers of geese.
Foie gras.
The list containing your choices of dishes.
Order.
Be cooked overtime.
Overcooked.
Cannot be eaten.
Inedible.
To spend money.
Shell out.
Money you work hard for.
Hard earned.
A rotten taste or smell.
Rancid.
A small thin piece.
Sliver.
Little dish people have before meal.
Appetizer.
Now say the word and hear it in a sentence.
Inedible.
This fish tastes terrible. It's completely inedible.
Inedible.
If you leave meat out of the refrigerator for too long, it will be inedible.
Inedible.
Are you sure you can eat that? Aren't the flower decorations on cakes inedible?
Rubbery.
This steak is so rubbery I can barely chew it.
Rubbery.
If the meat is so rubbery, why don't you send it back?
Rubbery.
The foie gras is so rubbery, I bet it would bounce on the floor if I dropped it.
Sliver.
No, John's on a diet. He'll just have a sliver of cake and no ice cream.
Sliver.
I'm really full, but it looks so delicious. Can you just cut me a sliver?
Sliver.
You call this sliver of beef on my plate a meal? There's almost nothing here.
Hard earned.
Doesn't it feel good when you use your hard-earned bucks to buy something you've always wanted?
Hard earned.
I refuse to spend my hard-earned bucks on someone who won't appreciate it.
Hard earned.
Richard is such a great guy. Every year he would donate his hard-earned bucks to a different charity. I can't believe I got a parking ticket yesterday. Now I'm going to have to shell out 75 bucks. It's me and my girlfriend's 5-year anniversary on Saturday, so I'm going to shell out for a nice dinner and a pair of nice earrings. Tommy loved to party. Last night he shelled out $300 buying people drinks.